The God of Black Americans is doing wonders. Someone has exposed someone. A friend to somebody has exposed another person. You know, whenever we talk about the Epstein file, Epstein, and the rest of that, a lot of them will like, oh, let's just move on. They will look for one thing or the other to just phrase it out. Hello, Melania Trump. You people have not seen anything. I said it in one of my videos that a lot of things is going to be reviewed. You know, due to this regime that we have literally we are seeing every single time that everybody is bitter about. Even people that are not in America are bitter about it. Even people that are in America are bitter about it. This is the time that a lot of things are going to be exposed. And guys, I want you guys to come and hear this confession, not from my mouth. Just watch. Welcome to the channel. My name is Sonia. Subscribe, like, comment, and share, and credit belongs to the original creators of every single clips and stitches we have in at this episode. I want to say a very big thank you to every single one of you liking, commenting, sharing, dropping super thanks, and also joining my membership. I do not take you guys for granted. You guys are absolutely the best. And guys, with that being said, disclaimers, educational purposes only. Don't come and carry me. Let's go watch.
Happened. Until moments ago, Amanda Ungaro had no posts on her X account, just her replies to Melania Trump. Her first post was my video talking about her replies to Melania Trump and how Melania Trump's press conference was likely to do with what she knows and what she might be about to release. And it seems we might be onto something here, folks. What I have found is that Amanda Ungaro has been working with Anthony Andrews and using this X account to post her story, what she knows, some of her evidence, with some of the most bombshell stuff likely yet to come. But she paints a picture of how Paolo Zampoli is involved with Melania, Epstein, Trump, all of it, and how it's all intertwined within our government right now. Everything in here needs to be investigated, and I hope some members of Congress are seeing this and will start looking into this, because this needs to be looked into. And perhaps this sheds some light on why the remaining 3 million plus Epstein files still have not been.
Paolo Zampoli is the former modeling agent who brought Melania to the United States for Donald Trump back in the 90s and has been in business with Donald Trump since the 90s. They did the whole modeling agencies together. They did the whole real estate world together. Paolo's a United Nations diplomat. He was a part of the first Trump administration, and he is very involved in the current administration. Right, okay, we've been talking about this guy since July. We know. As you guys know, I recently made contact with Amanda Ungaro, and we are now in communication on a regular basis. We know Amanda Ungaro is the mother of Paolo Zampoli's child, who he began grooming at the age of 15 years old. She was a victim of Jeffrey's operation. She was on Jeffrey's plane at just 16 years old. We knew that she was on Jeffrey's plane at 17 years old per the flight logs that were released by the DOJ in 2021. But since speaking to Amanda, she has confirmed that she was on Jeffrey's plane at the age of 16, earlier than we even realized. Amanda has known John Casablancas since she was 13 years old, and we know Paolo actually grew up with John Casablancas, and John Casablancas is the man who inspired Paolo to become a modeling agent. Amanda was a victim and witness to Jeffrey's operation. She has a lot of information about the inner workings of this operation. She was on Jeffrey's plane with Jean-Luc Brunel. She has a very unique perspective into this entire situation. And as we know and have been reporting on, in June of 2025, Amanda was wrongfully arrested and held in an ICE detention facility for nearly 4 months. After being held for that period of time, she was deported to Brazil without any kind of due process or trial. Amanda has a fantastic team of attorneys who are currently helping her get justice for her wrongful arrest, her wrongful deportation, and the parental kidnapping and alienation of the child that she shares with Paolo. Those are all ongoing proceedings, and on the 21st of this month, Amanda will testify in front of the Supreme Court in New York City. While acknowledging she has years of legal battles ahead of her, we hope that the 21st begins a series of wins for her and her future. With permission from Amanda's legal counsel, she has been given the permission to speak on a wide range of things that have happened to her and are currently happening to her. We can't talk about everything right now, but after some of the upcoming legal proceedings that she has, she will be able to say more. So I'm going to share with you some information that Amanda has given me permission and her legal team have given permission for me to share share with you guys. What I'm about to share with you is Amanda's own words, so I'm going to be reading from a screen so I can make sure I say everything correctly. And if you guys want to like read this stuff yourself and see like receipts and everything like that, you can go over to my Substack. I've already laid it all out and it's published on my page. So I'm going to share this message from Amanda with you guys, and then after that, I'm going to go over a few different names of figures that Amanda has given me. And these are figures who are aware of what's going on within our government and are assisting Paulo in his quest to silence and seek revenge against Amanda. Okay, from Amanda Ungaro, 1/18/2026. This is not family drama. This is a criminal operation. I have witnessed many things since I was a teenage girl who became swept up in this nightmare. I have photos to prove the physical abuse I have experienced at the hands of Paulo. I have proof of his longtime substance use issues. I have information and proof of his fraudulent business dealings and millions of dollars worth of insurance fraud that Paulo has committed. I have proof that me and my family have faced harassment, threats, and blackmail from Paulo for years. I have information and proof of government and public officials being bribed by Paulo. I have proof Paulo began trying to date me when I was 15 years old, and it is true that I was on Jeffrey Epstein's plane as a teenager. I was only 16 years old the first time I was put on his plane. I have proof Paulo abandoned his own mother in a nursing home in Italy after stealing her jewelry and other valuable items. If a man can rip away his own mother's dignity without a second thought, you can imagine what Paulo is capable of. I faced a false arrest based on manufactured charges. I was forced to stay in an ICE detention facility for months before I was deported to Brazil, where I have been fighting for justice. My paperwork and history of work for the United Nations did not stop the government from treating me like an animal. For 3 years before I was wrongfully arrested, I supported myself and my son without financial assistance from Paulo. In the years leading up to my arrest, Paulo and I did not have a romantic relationship, following an affair that he had in Washington, D.C. Paulo did call me his wife, and we were together for 19 years, but legally, we were never married. During that time, Paulo was only a present father to fit his narrative and to appear to the public as a loving father. I did not keep our son away from him and allowed him to still see his father. I moved to Miami with my son to enter the workforce, really for the first time outside of my 10 years of work for the United Nations. My attempt to be independent and create distance between myself and Paulo enraged him, and everything got worse, especially when I filed for full custody. The court awarding me full custody would mean Paulo would have to pay years of unpaid child support and continue to financially support our son into adulthood. This was not something that fit Paulo's narrative, something he is desperate to control. I was being harassed relentlessly. My family and friends were harassed as well and even followed in some cases. Shortly after, I began working a job at a medical assistant training school that specializes in minimally invasive procedures. I was associated with a med spa in Miami. Many anonymous complaints began to flood in. The man that I was arrested with was my romantic partner at the time and is now my husband. He is an awarded plastic surgeon of 30 years who conducts teaching seminars across the world. 3 months before being arrested and booked in June, police showed up unannounced to our home. Police came into our home and took me and my partner out in handcuffs. We were thrown against the wall outside of our home, and neighbors began to come outside because of the police presence. They were shocked. We were shocked. Neither of us have a criminal record, yet we were handled with extreme force, humiliated, and made a spectacle out of. We were humiliated. We waited for an hour for the police to get a search warrant. They destroyed our home and found nothing. The officers then went to my workplace and were there for hours. They confiscated equipment properly approved, lasers by regulatory agencies, medical documents, and patient records. They did all this searching for evidence of criminal activity that simply did not exist. Then June came and my partner, now husband, and I were arrested. No one else from the training center or spa were arrested. I was picked up by ICE officers and taken to a detention center. No bail was possible. I felt so broken and confused. I remained imprisoned in that ICE detention center in Miami for 3.5 months, while increasingly absurd accusations were piled on and have yet to be proven. One of the charges placed against me included that I was practicing medicine illegally, which is an absurd lie that the state of Florida has yet to provide evidence to my legal team of. Nothing that my husband and I have been arrested for has been proven in court, yet I was deported without trial. I was not given the opportunity to prove that the charges against me were fabricated. My fate was decided before they put the handcuffs on me. When I arrived in Brazil, I began the legal process of fighting for custody of my son, and for a moment I was successful. Giovanni was brought to Brazil briefly after my deportation, per court orders, before Paulo illegally removed him from my care and the country, causing me to file a kidnapping complaint. I am still fighting for my son to be rightfully returned to my custody. So that that is what Amanda has to share with you guys, what she has permission to share with you guys right now. If you go over to part 2, we're going to go over some of the names who Amanda has given me as figures in our government who have helped assist Paula in having Amanda wrongfully deported and her son kidnapped from her. There is a man who is a part of our current administration who is in a long-term relationship and has a child with a model who he has been representing since she was a teenager, and also appeared on Jeffrey's flight logs when she was just 17 years old. I've already done an in-depth video, but I'm going to give you the cliff notes so that you can understand why I believe that this is very alarming. So Paolo Zampoli, we've talked about him many times. He works in our current administration. He is on the board of the Kennedy Center. He has been a close friend and advisor and business partner to our sitting president since the 90s. He was the modeling agent who brought Melania to the United States to meet Donald Trump originally, and they would go on to be married. Right around the same time, in the mid to late 90s, both Paolo and Donald Trump would open their own modeling agencies. Both of their modeling agencies would go on to face claims and accusations of R-word, SA, theft of wages, overcrowded apartments where the models would be housed, exploitation, and visa fraud. Paolo is a United Nations diplomat. From 2013 to 2014, he collaborated with Ghislaine and Jeffrey's fake oceanic nonprofit environmental organization, Terramar, which allowed Jeffrey and Ghislaine to make further connections and gain credibility through working with the United Nations. Through his modeling agency, ID Models, he would go on to represent a Brazilian teenager named Amanda Ungaro, and that is the teenager who would appear on Jeffrey's flight logs back in 2002 when she was just 17 years old. Just a few years after Amanda appeared on Jeffrey's flight logs, Paolo would go on to date her, and they would have a child together, and she would go on to also become a United Nations ambassador, and they have been together romantically for nearly 20 years, minus a brief moment in 2018 when they did break up. Amanda tried to leave Paolo in 2018 during Trump's first term, but Paolo called in some favors and had her flagged through immigration so that she could not return to her home country with her son, and Paolo also refused to pay her any kind of child support if she were to leave him. After this, they rekindled their relationship despite repeated allegations of infidelity and SA that Paolo has engaged in while in their relationship. Most recently, in June of 2025, just a couple months back, right around the time when the files became a topic of conversation again, Amanda was arrested in Miami alongside a Brazilian doctor, and they were arrested for illegally operating a medical facility, grand theft, organized scheme to defraud, and illegally acquiring prescription medications to give their patients, as they were allegedly offering invasive cosmetic procedures without any kind of licensing. When she was arrested, Amanda was placed on an immigration hold and set to be deported, and that is the last thing that we have heard about Amanda Ungaro, the longtime partner of someone who is sitting in this current administration, longtime friends with the president, who appeared on Jeffrey's flight logs back in 2002, is just being deported. And the day after Amanda was taken into custody, Paolo Zampoli posts this photo of himself and Pam Bondi on his social media. No mention of Amanda at all. Amanda is no longer appearing in any of his photos afterwards. Like, since she's been arrested, there's been no photos with her whatsoever. There's been no seeming concern for Amanda at all. He's just been posting like everything's great, normal, happy even. And I'm not saying that Amanda didn't do anything wrong. Obviously, this is the United States. You're innocent until proven guilty. Obviously, she is on the fast track to being deported. And that doesn't make any sense from the standpoint that she is still a United Nations diplomat. She should have a diplomatic passport. She should have diplomatic immunity from arrest and prosecution of a lot of different charges. In a lot of situations, local authorities don't have the authority to disregard diplomatic privileges. It doesn't make any sense how the United States is actively deporting a United Nations diplomat, and it's not being talked about at all in mainstream media. Regardless of the fact that she was on Jeffrey's plane at 17 years old, went on to have a child with the agent who is supposed to be representing her, who's 15 years her senior. Like, putting that aside because that's extremely relevant, but the fact that they're trying to deport a United Nations diplomat makes no sense at all. It doesn't make even a little bit of sense. I really hope that everyone is beginning to see the correlation between Donald Trump's modeling agency, Paolo Zampoli's modeling agency, John Casablancas' modeling agency, Jean-Luc Brunel's modeling agency, and how all of those men were friends of Jeffrey, and they all happily gave Jeffrey access to the droves of young girls and women that they had virtual ownership of. And we know for a fact that all of these men had very similar business models when it came to running modeling agencies. We know for a fact that one of the main ways that these men stacked their modeling agencies was via selling dreams to vulnerable young girls and young women, then illegally bringing them from overseas to the United States, where these young girls and young women would work for them. They would live in housing that they provided for them, which was typically completely overcrowded and run down. And these men would take up to 80% of these girls' wages, and these girls would be left at the mercy of them, not by their own choice because they were guaranteed that their immigration would be all sorted out, but it never was. And before they knew it, they have nowhere to go. Obviously, this wasn't just happening internationally, this was happening domestically as well. But when it did happen internationally, and it did often, these girls would be put in terrible situations. A lot of these women and young girls would be required to attend events and parties to entertain the friends and associates of their bosses. Due to the nature of some of the accusations that have been levied against all of these men's modeling agencies, it's very safe to say that we all know what kind of operation this was. And right now, it's really starting to look like there's a lot of work being done behind the scenes to ensure that any victim is completely silenced, even if it means them being deported, when they hold the title of United Nations diplomat. I'm telling you guys, something is not right about this situation. And I know it's easy to judge Amanda because she's now as a mugshot, she's arrested. I just feel like there's something more there. I'm not saying she's not guilty of those charges. I have no idea. I'm just saying there is absolutely something more to this situation. Okay, go to the next video because I found a story that aired on the news nearly 20 years ago about Paolo Zampoli and his close friend Donald Trump, and you guys are gonna wanna see it.
Okay guys, I found something absolutely crazy, and I apologize, I'm still a little bit congested. Obviously the video I posted yesterday, I filmed it before I got sick, and now I'm getting better. But I found something crazy and I have to show it to you guys. Like, this cannot wait. So I was looking at old videos of Paolo Zampoli, enemy of the channel, you know, the modeling agent who brought Melania to the United States, who now works in our current administration and used his power under the current administration to have the mother of his child held in an ICE detention facility for months and deported wrongfully with no due process while they were involved in a custody battle, keeping in mind that the mother of his child, Amanda Ungaro, began being groomed by Paolo at 15 and was on Jeffrey's plane alongside Jean-Luc Brunel, her first modeling agent, at 16. If you want more information about him, go check out my Paolo Zampoli playlist. We've been talking about this guy since last summer. But I was looking at old videos of Paolo Zampoli and I came across a video that was in a different language, but I saw a girl in this video that looked so familiar to me. And I don't mean Amanda Ungaro, who we can see is clearly in this video, and her name can be heard in the video as well. Then I kept listening and looking, and I realized where I recognized this other girl from. I had like a That's So Raven moment when the woman who's speaking in this video said Svetlana. And I was like, oh my god, I know exactly who this girl is in this video with Paolo, advertising his real estate / modeling company. The girl in that video is Svetlana, or Lana Posidevia, and I may be pronouncing her last name wrong. And Lana recruited for Jeffrey and worked for Jeffrey for many, many years. She also has ties to the Russian government. Jeffrey was funding a company that she started, a women's empowerment company that she started. Like, there's a lot to this woman and all of her connections. We've spoken about her briefly a couple of times. She recently spoke out in an interview and explained how she was a victim of Jeffrey while also admitting to recruiting for Jeffrey. She also did try to downplay her ties to the Russian government, which is expected. I think it's important to note that she was in her mid-20s when she began working and recruiting for Jeffrey. She was not a part of Jeffrey's circle before she was an adult. And I think you guys, like, who have been here for a while understand that, like, there's a lot of nuance when it comes to some of the women who recruited and worked for Jeffrey. Like, for example, Nadia Marzinkova, she became a victim of Jeffrey while she was a child and then went on to become a perpetrator herself, recruiting and engaging with girls who were not of age. We can acknowledge and empathize that she was a victim of Jeffrey and that never should have happened to her, but at the exact same time, it doesn't take away the harm that they did towards other little girls as an adult. For me personally, I have a lot harder of a time understanding and empathizing with the women who were in Jeffrey's orbit who became a part of his circle as adults, knowing the crimes that he had committed and being quickly made aware of his vices. And I'm not saying like the women who were adults and began working for Jeffrey were not manipulated or they were not harmed themselves by Jeffrey. Nearly every woman and girl who came into Jeffrey's orbit was either harmed or manipulated by him. In this situation specifically with Lana, I think that her overall lack of remorse for her role in recruiting is very telling to me. And I will say, and this is just my opinion, the timing of Lana coming forward to, for the first time, say that she's a victim of Jeffrey is very interesting to me with the timing of the Bank of America settlement. That will soon be paid out to specifically the victims of Jeffrey. But I sent these findings over to Amanda. As you guys know, I've been in active communication with Amanda since January, and she confirmed that the girl in this video is indeed Svetlana Posudevia, and Amanda knew her through the man that she was dating who appears in this video. The man is Charles Riva. He is a close friend of Paolo Zampoli, and according to Amanda, was dating Lana at this time. And this video was probably filmed about 2009-2010. Here's a photo of Charles Riva at Paolo's home in 2015. The same home where another one of Jeffrey's recruiters was partying at in 2015. And what do you know? Charles Riva's name appears multiple times in Jeffrey's emails. He seems to be very involved with like the art scene in New York City. So things just keep stacking up against Paolo Zampoli. And I understand that Congress is on vacation right now or whatever, but like this is getting a little outrageous. I don't know if we're not understanding like the smoking gun that is right here. I don't know if we're not understanding that this man is not someone who has been trained to only use language when speaking that will protect him and his associates. This is not Bill Clinton. This is not Bill Gates. This is not Jeffrey's lawyers who are trained to speak in a certain way to not implicate themselves. Paolo Zampoli is a career modeling agent and an international rush hourer. He is going to crack under pressure, but until the pressure is placed on him, he will continue doing whatever he wants. Right now, he's on a trip with the Vice President of the United States, traveling on our taxpayer dime. You know, it's really funny. On this same trip, Paolo was actively harassing his victims, trying to silence them and settle for money so that they will stop sharing their story and stop talking to journalists. He is actively trying to pay and silence his victims while he is on a trip with the vice president. The Oversight Committee has acknowledged Paolo Zampoli and are aware of what he has done. And so far, zero action has been taken. We need more than a...
Yeah, you in danger, girl. You know that friend that you had got deported? Well, she out of ICE custody, and apparently she on your neck. Melania, what was going on yesterday? You must have found out your friend got out of ICE custody. Now, before we can talk about that speech Melania gave, we have to actually talk about this article by the New York Times. Now, in this image seen here at the 2021 Mar-a-Lago New Year's Eve party, the woman seen there goes by the name of Amanda Ungaro. She's Brazilian, and she was dating that guy by the name of Mr. Zampoli. Well, they were dating for decades. They had a child. He's about 17 years old now. When they broke up, she ended up moving down to Miami and getting married to a Brazilian doctor. She ended up being caught up in some sort of like scheme, like Medicare fraud or something like that, which again, people are starting to speculate that it came from the baby daddy. Well, after she had got arrested, he then called Donald Trump and had her deported to Brazil, her and her Brazilian doctor husband. And then he took custody of their 17-year-old son. The son asked to go to Brazil with his mom, but then was in Brazil, was like, oh, I'd rather come back to the States. So now he's with the dad. Now let's talk about what that has got to do with Melania. Apparently that girl has been on a crusade because she is an Epstein victim. She stated that she had flew into the United States at 17 years old, on the Lolita Express child. And she stated that that's when she had met Melania. And then Melania had then got introduced to Mr. Zampoli or whatever you say his name. She dated him, and then she turned around and dated Donald Trump, referring to Melania. Yes, honey, they was all dating, if that makes sense. Melania was dating Zampoli, then she turned around and dated Donald Trump. That's how they met, okay? Now let's fast forward to Melania's little weird speech she gave trying to separate herself from the Epstein files, right? Apparently, Amanda Ungaro is out of ICE custody. And these are the tweets that she's been putting out since that speech. She said, hello, Melania. I was around you for 20 years, and you know I was inside ICE, and you know what hurts after all this time? I stay close to your family, your mother and your father, not because of you, but because of them. At events and everything else. So shut your mouth when speaking about me, because I will expose everything I know. And that's what brings us to Melania's speech. Melania must have got word that she got out of ICE custody.
I look at the Melania and Amanda Ungaro situation as a battle of psychologic. Melania isn't fighting facts. She's fighting a vibe by issuing a high status denial to anchor her narrative. But Amanda is using costly signal, risking her own standing to say, I was there for 20 years. It's the ultimate narrative showdown, the power of the official statement versus the power of the person who remembers. Read more of my thoughts in the description and tell me in the comments which one of these feels more real to you, the polished defense or...
The more I look into the Epstein matter, I see that there are 3 classifications of victims. One are the victims that we will never know about, that we will never hear from, that may not be on this planet any longer. But the other 2, the ones that we have been seeing at press conferences and speaking to congressmen, these are the survivors that got away. They were victimized as children and they got away. There is another classification of survivors, and those are the ones that never got away, that continue to be enmeshed in that circle and continue to be victimized through their adulthood. Let's look at the story of Amanda Ungaro. I did a video on her yesterday. You might want to watch. It's going kind of viral. Here's some more background on her. So she has been in a relationship with Paolo Zampoli. Why does that matter? Well, number one, he is a longtime associate of Trump's. He started with the Trump organization, I got notes here, in 2004 as the Director of International Development. He currently holds a position in the U.S. government as Special Representative for Global Partnerships. He says he's the one that introduced Trump and Melania to each other at a party in New York in 1998. So he and Amanda, he says they were never married, but they have 2 children together. And when she decided to split from him, an ugly custody battle ensued. And guess what happened after the custody battle ensued? She was picked up by ICE. Now, Amanda had come into the country legally, but her visa had expired. And Zampoli admits to contacting ICE. Now he says, oh, but I wasn't trying to have her detained. But he admits to contacting ICE, and she was detained by ICE. Someone who has a position of power and someone who is in Trump's sphere of influence all over the place, closely connected. Amanda Ungaro says that Melania tried to get her to be involved in this whole process. Amanda Ungaro says Melania is also involved. That's what she says, okay? Very interesting story. We're going to learn more as the days go on, but you guys might want to read up on this. We're going to hear a lot more of this about how enmeshed some of these victims continue to be throughout their...
Back on March 20th, the New York Times published a long article about this situation. This flew under people's radars until Melanie decided to have that press conference. So this says, Trump friend asked ICE to detain the mother of his child. Paola Zampoli, a former modeling agent and a longtime Trump ally, was in custody battle over his son. An ICE agent official agreed to help. Let's look at this article. It says, last June, the man credited with introducing Trump to his wife asked the administration for a favor. Paolo Zampoli, a former modeling agent turned presidential special envoy, had learned that his Brazilian ex-girlfriend was in a Miami jail, arrested on charges of fraud at her workplace. They had been in a custody battle over their teenage son. Now he saw an opportunity. He reached out to a top official at Immigration and Customs Enforcement, explaining that his ex was in the country illegally, according to records obtained by the New York Times and a person familiar with the communications. Could she be put in ICE detention? That could help him get his son back. The official, David Venturella, promptly called the agency's Miami office to ensure that ICE agents would pick up the woman from jail before she was released on bail. According to the records and a person with knowledge of the conversation who requested anonymity to discuss it. During the call, Mr. Venturella noted that the case was important to someone close to the White House. The woman, Amanda Ungaro, was placed in ICE custody and ultimately deported, an outcome that may well have happened regardless of Mr. Zampoli's meddling, but the ICE officials' willingness to spring into action for a Trump ally, even one in a low-level, largely ceremonial role, reflects a recurring theme of the second Trump administration. The levers of the federal government can be pulled to settle a personal score. Mr. Zampoli, 56, is known in Washington for flaunting his proximity to the Trumps. In this case, he used his clout to solicit help from an agency beset by allegations of unlawful overreach. In an interview with The Times, Mr. Zampoli denied asking ICE to detain Ms. Ungaro or seeking any other favors. He said he merely asked Mr. Venturella to explain what was going on with her case. The Department of Homeland Security, which oversees ICE, said in a statement that Ms. Ungaro was detained and deported because she was on a long-expired visa and had been charged with fraud. Any suggestion that she was arrested and removed for political reasons or favors is false. As the president's special representative for global partnerships, Mr. Zampoli is a minor character in Trump's Washington, but the role keeps him within photo op range of the Trump family, cabinet secretaries, and other prominent figures in and around the administration. He throws parties at a sprawling D.C. townhouse where the walls are hung with pictures of him and the president, and an end table displays a copy of the First Lady's book, Melanoma. His Instagram feed shows him trailing behind Mrs. Trump at the United Nations, standing beside Mr. Trump's chief of staff, and posing with his son-in-law, Jared Kushner. I am honored to have been a friend of the president for more than 30 years and a friend of the First Lady for 29 years, reads one caption. It ends, loyalty is king. Mr. Zampoli and Mr. Trump were fixtures of the New York City nightlife in the 90s, as Mr. Zampoli told The Times a decade ago, shared a common interest. We both like beautiful things. That's how they regarded women, as things. For years, the men have told the story of how one night at the Kit Kat Club in 1998, Mr. Zampoli introduced Mr. Trump to Melania Trump, a model he had recruited from Slovenia. In the city's modeling scene, Mr. Zampoli also intersected with Jeffrey Epstein, the financier who would later be accused of SAing hundreds of girls and young women. The men once discussed buying a modeling agency together, and Mr. Zampoli's name appears several times in the millions of Epstein documents recently released by the Justice Department. In one 2011 email, Mr. Epstein warned that an Emirati businessman, be careful, Zampoli is trouble, lots. He added, he sells stories to the press. So I guess this is, hold on. Oh, okay, that's a younger Zampoli, and still this Donald Trump with this terrible comb over. Mr. Zampoli told The Times in a recent interview that he did not have a close or warm relationship with Mr. Epstein, as shown by the fact that he appeared less frequently in the Epstein files than many other figures, including professors, monarchs, and celebrities. At least I was included because if you're not on the list, you're a loser, right? Ms. Ungaro was a 17-year-old model when she arrived in New York for the first time in 2002, flying on Mr. Epstein's plane from Paris with her French agent. She never saw Mr. Epstein again, she said in an interview, but later that year, she met Mr. Zampoli, then 32, at a Manhattan nightclub. Mr. Zampoli wooed her as a client, she said, persuaded her to move to the United States, and began a romantic relationship with her that would last 2 decades. Mr. Zampoli said this didn't happen until Ms. Ungaro was 19. They ascended into elite social circles as Mr. Zampoli forged connections to former President Bill Clinton, the wealthy businessman Ron Burkle, and other prominent figures. But few other relationships were as enduring as the one he had with the Trumps. So here he is, heavier, older, and here we have an old Donald Trump. I really miss to see both of you, Mr. Zampoli wrote in a 2013 email to Mrs. Trump, reviewed by The Times. As you know, Donald changed my life with you that night at dinner with Copperfield. He was referring to an evening a decade earlier when at a dinner with the illusionist David Copperfield, Mr. Trump had offered Mr. Zampoli a job in real estate. The two couples remained friends, as Mr. Zampoli and Ms. Ungaro both secured ambassadorships to the United Nations, representing Dominica and Grenada. They would all sit together at New York City on New Year's Eve parties at Mar-a-Lago, and Mrs. Trump would send birthday wishes and presents to their son. Oh my God, you are always the best. Let's meet soon, XOXO, Mr. Zampoli replied to one of her messages in 2015. At the end of Mr. Trump's first term, Mr. Zampoli was appointed to the board of the Kennedy Center. He moved to Washington for a short time with Ms. Ungaro and their son. But by 2023, she was fed up. Mr. Zampoli had made headlines for his boisterous parties filled with younger women and for passing around explicit text messages between himself and a woman he claimed was an ex-worker. Ms. Ungaro left Mr. Zampoli, moved to Florida, and married a doctor from Brazil. Their son went to boarding school and then lived with her, and the former couple fought over custody of him. Then, last June, Ms. Ungaro and her husband were arrested. The local police, prompted by anonymous tips, had been investigating the couple's workplace, a medical spa where offerings included Botox and facelifts. Ms. Ungaro and her husband were charged with fraud, practicing medicine without a license, and other crimes. They pleaded not guilty. Ms. Ungaro's husband held a green card and was quickly released from jail on bond, but she did not have the same legal status. For years, she told the Times Mr. Zampoli had dangled the prospect of marriage and the path to citizenship that comes with it, and then taken it back. She held a string of temporary visas, the last of which expired in 2019. After her arrest, Mr. Zampoli began working his connections at ICE. He sought help from Corey Lewandowski, the dude that was screwing Kristi Noem. Corey Lewandowski, the dude screwing I don't know why I just did that. Then a top aide to, I don't know why I did that. All right, then a top aide to Homeland Security Secretary Record Shelton. He told the Times that Mr. Lewandowski did not respond to him. Mr. Lewandowski said he never heard of that guy. And the Homeland Security statement said he had no involvement in Ms. Ungaro's case. This is David Venturella, who he did have luck with. Mr. Zampoli had better luck with Mr. Venturella. His back-channeling noted his relationship with the president and the first lady, according to the records obtained by the Times and a person familiar with his communications. And he conveyed his belief that Ms. Ungaro's detention would help him gain custody of their son. Mr. Zampoli told the Times that he was not asking Mr. Venturella for a favor. I asked David what was going on because I did not know the process. Mr. Zampoli said that while he considered the Trumps close friends and that they were always there for me, he did not recall whether he invoked their names or mentioned that Ms. Ungaro's detainment would help him get his son. A spokesman for Melania Trump said in a statement that the First Lady has no knowledge of nor involvement in the personal affairs of Mr. Zampoli and Ms. Ungaro. He also said that Mrs. Trump has had no contact or engagement with ICE. After Mr. Venturella called the Miami office, Ms. Ungaro was placed in ICE custody. The local office kept Mr. Venturella updated on her status. People familiar with the outreach said that, in all likelihood, it did not alter the trajectory of Ms. Ungaro's case. She had already been flagged for detention, but ICE officials have some discretion when deciding whom to detain, and the agency has specific guidance for cases that will affect minors. With detention centers in Florida and elsewhere stretched beyond capacity, some detainees have been released with ankle bracelets while their cases move through immigration court. When the Times informed Ms. Ungaro that a senior ICE official had gotten involved in her case at the behest of Mr. Zampoli, she said she was appalled. It's devastating that they could have affected what happened to me. By September, she said she had become convinced that if she remained at the detention center, she would lose custody of her son. So she asked the immigration judge to send her back to Brazil, which he did. In November, the son asked to move to Brazil to live with Ms. Ungaro, and Mr. Zampoli agreed. But by the end of the year, the teenager decided to move back to the United States to live with his father. He remains there while his parents continue fighting in court. And so now this is a woman scorned. She said, I'm about to burn this bee down. Because she said that she has known Melanie for 20 years and she didn't do anything. Now, people calling in favors, that does happen. And this woman was illegal. She should have gotten kicked out, whatever. But the fact that she's about to burn it down, I am thoroughly entertained, and we are all going to be watching this.
This is absolutely shocking. We now likely know why Melania Trump gave this Epstein press conference the other day. It's because of this woman, Amanda Ungaro, who has been friends with Melania Trump for 20 years. And that right there is her husband, Paolo Zampoli, who Trump appointed to the Kennedy Center board as well as a special envoy to the United States. But he also happened to be a good friend of Jeffrey Epstein and appears in the Epstein file over and over again. 16 different times. In fact, Paolo claims to have introduced Melania to Trump in 1998. Now, his wife Amanda, who was friends with Melania Trump for 20 years, was on Jeffrey Epstein's Lolita Express multiple times. But Amanda is now angry because Paolo here asked Trump to deport her over a custody battle over their son. So Amanda is now speaking out, threatening legal action and to spill the beans on everything. And she's going to tear Melania down as well as this.
Amanda Ungaro. She has First Lady Melania Trump running scared, and it appears that she might be the reason Melania came out with her press conference out of nowhere yesterday. Now, Melania has done this. All those replies that Amanda made to the FLOTUS45 Melania Trump's account have been deleted. All of them. Gone. Now, we don't know if Amanda deleted them or if the FLOTUS account did, but you can take a guess. The internet is forever, and I've got them, and so do many others. But are we witnessing another major cover-up? This brings more context into what Melania Trump said yesterday, and Amanda's ex and baby daddy, Paolo Zampoli, went on the Daily Mail and said that he is willing to testify before Congress, something the First Lady also said she would do and wants others to do. Now, Zampoli said he's willing to bring 50 other witnesses that were present at a party he hosted back in 1998 at the Kit Kat Club, where he says that he introduced Melania Trump to Donald Trump. So he says he can prove that with all these witnesses. But this begs the question, what does Amanda have? What are they afraid of her releasing? What does she have on all of them that they are so worried about? That has to be so bombshell that Melania Trump held an impromptu press conference without even notifying the president. This is major, guys. We'll see what happens here. Be sure to check back for updates, and I'll see you back here for the 411.
I think we now know why Melania was randomly talking about Epstein yesterday, and it all goes down to Amanda Ungaro. Talk about the Streisand effect. They might want to rename it the Melania effect after this, because my God, this has exploded. Keep in mind, this is the former wife of Trump official Paolo Zampoli, who used his connections to the Trump administration to get Amanda deported while they were in the midst of a custody battle. And she says, "We'll take legal action against you and your PDF file husband. I have known you for 20 years. You knew I was detained in ICE. You were present in my life every year on my son's birthday, even sending Secret Service and being the first to congratulate him back in 2016. Something was clearly wrong, but I am not a part of any evil mission involving children. So what did you do, Melania? You tried to involve me, but you failed because I have character. I will tear down your corrupt system, even if it's the last thing I do in my life. I will go all the way. I am not afraid. Maybe you should be afraid of what I know of who you are and who your husband is." And she mentions Pam Bondi. Are you already aware of the situation? Do you fully understand the extent of the information I possess regarding you and the individuals associated with you? I strongly advise you to consider the seriousness of these matters. Any actions taken against me or attempts to escalate this situation could have significant legal consequences. I expect this to be handled with the appropriate level of responsibility and professionalism moving forward. She's also resharing all kinds of shit like this. In a nasty divorce, Zampoli allegedly had Trump use ICE to deport his ex-wife, Amanda Ungaro. Amanda is now set to do an interview this weekend and tell all about Melania, Epstein, Trump, and Zampoli. Goddamn. So I imagine we're going to hear the name Amanda Ungaro quite a bit in the coming days. And Melania drove everybody's attention straight to it.
These tweets by Amanda Ungaro that she was sending out the night before or the morning of April 9th, depending on what time zone you're in, which we will get to that when it comes to her in a minute. But we're going to come back to these tweets. First of all, who is Amanda Ungaro? Amanda Ungaro is many things, including the ex-wife of Paolo Zampoli. Who is Paolo Zampoli, might you ask? Good question, because he's come up in the news actually multiple times in the past year, either with or without his name, just in like the ways that it was circulating. So I think a lot of people don't realize that all of them were this one guy. Let's get into it. Paolo Zampoli is a close personal friend of Donald Trump. He is currently the United States Special Envoy for Global Partnerships. In the first Trump term, he was appointed to the Board of Trustees for the Kennedy Space Center. Interesting how that needs to keep cropping up. So, close personal friend of Donald Trump. They met because he owned a modeling agency, and they became close through that world. What was Paolo Zampoli's modeling agency renowned for, might you ask? Well, for getting visa situations for like 14 to 16-year-old, very young Eastern European girls to come model in the United States. Model. What do we have that associated with in the Epstein world now? You may also recognize the name or character of Paolo from a few months ago, the headline of when he got his ex-wife deported by calling ICE on her and separating her from her 15-year-old son, essentially kidnapping him and becoming the sole custody person. They initially met when she came to Manhattan from Paris on Lolita's Express, Jeffrey Epstein's plane. That's how they met for the first time. She was 17, he was 32, by the way. It bears mentioning here that in tapes taken by author Michael Wolff, Jeffrey Epstein claimed that Melania and Trump slept together for the first time on Lolita's Express, his plane. So you better believe that in the very first hours of April 9th, when Amanda Ungaro was getting on Twitter, directly adding the First Lady's account saying, "Do you know what I think about you after 20 years? She has thoughts, and they are true. She has seen some things." He then goes on to say, "I will take legal action against you and your," I had to scribble it out, "husband. I have known you for 20 years. You know I was detained in ICE. You were present in my life every year on my son's birthday, even sending Secret Service and being the first to congratulate him back in 2016. Something was clearly wrong, but I am not part of any evil mission involving children. So what did you do, Melania? You tried to involve me, but you failed because I have character." Clearly here implying that Melania tried to get her in on some kind of the sex trafficking ring, and she denied. "I will tear down your corrupt system, even if it is the last thing I do. I will go all the way. I am not afraid. Maybe you should be afraid of what I know, of who you are, of who your husband is." Yeah. And then she's finding this old address that Melania did and saying, "Until you fall as a little chicken," which is just funny. And there's a TikToker on here. I'll find his @ and put it up here so you guys can see that it started making videos about this earlier, or maybe even previously to this. And she very correctly was saying the fact she's worried about what I know says everything. And yes, it does, because the fact that Melania is a response to this is the only thing it could be a response to, in my opinion, gets up and does a completely impromptu address that allegedly Trump was not even aware that she was about to be making. Girl, you're scared. So not only is this girlhood dead, but she could be the reason that the Trump administration finally gets brought down. We need to get her back from Brazil. We need to get her testifying on the stand everything she knows about this woman and tangentially the president of the United States.
Anyways, welcome back, guys, and thank you so much for watching to this point. And to be honest, this is just a tip of an iceberg. Like, this is just the beginning of this high class downfall. This is just the beginning of God exposing the orange man and whatsoever. I'm sorry if I'm ruffling on anyone's shoulder, but this is not me saying, this is me. This is people saying exactly what her once friend did. Because sometimes questions I keep asking is, why is it that any single time a lot of people are trying to talk about the Epstein file, the orange man will look for one thing or the other to pull out there? Now, let's assume that if the name Barack Obama or any black related person's name is in this Epstein file, don't you think that by now the orange man would have released the file? But this man keep holding up. The last time what he did was to go ahead and fire, what's that lady's name again? I've forgotten her name. I'm sorry, guys. The one he said, oh, she don't want to release the file or talk about the file, blah, blah, blah. Trashed all her pictures on the wall and fire her down to her house. So, but when we are telling you, sir, release the file so that we can know, we would have got done with all of this. He's not bringing it out because there is something fishing. And you can imagine, is it a boyfriend or an ex? Like, it's so sad. It's so sad. And this is me giving my opinion, okay? Please do not even dare come for me. Because a lot of things that these people have done in the closed doors is definitely going to keep coming into the limelight, because we are tired of them lying to us. We are tired of you pretending as if you don't know what you're doing. The next thing we're seeing is you are at war with Iran, spending billions and billions of naira, where you can literally release this file without spending a dime. Let's talk about some of the reasons why this file may or may not be released, right? Number one is the ongoing or past legal protection, where many documents are sealed by courts to protect the integrity of trial, witness, or appeal process. Then number two is privacy of victims. A major victim identities and testimonies are often protected to avoid further harm or exposure. These victims have literally been coming out to be saying a lot of things about the Epstein fight and the rest of that. So nobody's protecting anything. You are just trying to just cover your shit, cover your mess up. That is one thing I've seen in this whole thing, right? Defamation risks, where some names mentioned in investigations may not have been charged or convicted, so released everything could lead to lawsuits. We are supposed to be suing a lot of people and even moving a lot of people from the office already. And that is why a lot of them are scared of releasing this particular file. The fourth one, where national security concern, if any intelligence agency were involved or aware of the Epstein activities, some materials could be classified. Exactly what we are seeing. Scope of presidential power. A president cannot utterly usually cut documents. The power lies mainly with the judge. It's a lie. We'll talk about the political consequences, where releasing documents that implicate powerful or connected individuals could trigger major political fallout. And this is the part where I really know that they are really scared, because they don't want their political career to just end. They want to gather everything to themselves. They want to enjoy every single thing to themselves. So that is why them releasing this file is going to be like a lot. A lot. When I mean a lot, to themselves. Then let's talk about agencies like the DOB control investigation files and may not choose to release to protect method of sources. A lot of Epstein related information have actually been released over time through lawsuit links and court ruling, just not in one single master file. The idea of a secret complete list begin deliberately withheld in wide discussed online, but no verified evidence shows such a document exists in the way people imagine. And the bottom line of everything is the fact that they refuse to release it because they are literally protecting a lot of system, a lot of political powers, and so on and so forth. Like, I don't want to say the other thing that I'm saying here again, okay? And you guys have seen every single thing that this Melanian friend has said, and okay, we keep our fingers crossed, because one thing we know is that they are going to keep getting exposed. Even if they like, they should run from now to 10 years, 20 years. But one thing I know is what will be. Let me know what you think in the comment section, and credits belong to the original creators of every single clips and stitches we have in our today's episode. I want to say a very big thank you to every single one of you, liking, commenting, sharing, dropping super thanks, and also joining my membership. I do not take you guys for granted. You guys are absolutely the best. And yes, guys, with that being said, with no further ado, I do like I always say in my videos, I'm going to be saying bye, and I'll see you guys in my next one. For now, bye guys. I love you guys. Take care of yourself.